I'm here with Gordon A. Martin, Jr., the author of Count Them One by One, Black Mississippians Fighting for the Right to Vote. Welcome to Jackson.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. Hattiesburg, the county seat of Forrest County, permitted only 12 out of 7,500 registered or would-be registered voters of the African-American race to vote.
Only 12
Only
out
12
of 7,500
on the county as a whole. And we had to do something about that. At that point, though, we were operating on a county-by-county basis, and I think one of the things that we learned from the Forrest County case was just how slow it would be. It went on for years despite the best efforts of the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit, which entered an order right after our first trial in March of 1962. Okay. And this case, Steve, led directly to the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. We needed something radical to deal with the disfranchisement of blacks in the South. The Voting Rights Act took the power to discriminate away from the covered states under the statute, and really by the end of 1965, the act having been passed in August, there was a significant increase, and by the end of the decade, blacks were voting basically in the same way that whites did. The 82 counties of Mississippi each had a circuit clerk who also served as the registrar of voters. And that person, for a black person, along with the chief of police, was probably the most important person. They represented government, and government at that point was hostile to any form of black rights.
Well, you said there were only 12 registered. What kinds of things would happen to keep them from registering? What sorts of things happened in that office?
Really, the arbitrary denial of the franchise to blacks. The literacy test wasn't even enforced until 1961 for white people. They just walked in, signed the book, there they were.
Okay.
There they were. And black people weren't permitted to take the test until about that same period of time. When they took the test, they would be given the most difficult sections of the Mississippi Constitution to interpret.
And facing all that, did many of the black citizens in Forrest County and elsewhere just give up? Is that one of the reasons there were so few registered?
Some gave up, but others persisted. Richard Boyd went to the circuit clerk's office 50 times. Finally got registered, ultimately. After the order was issued for the Fifth Circuit, and Registrar Lynd had been ordered not to discriminate, then the pastor of Mount Carmel Missionary Baptist Church, James Chandler, was the first of our witnesses to be registered by Theron Lynd. It took him 9 times after the order that Lynd not discriminate. Big trial was in March of 62.
Okay.
Theron Lynd, violating the order, immediately had to have a contempt trial in September of 1962, and different proceedings went on thereafter for 3 more years.
Now, you came to Forrest County and gathered together black witnesses who had been discriminated against, who had been denied the right by Theron Lynd. What kinds of obstacles did someone face in becoming a witness in this case? Were there intimidations that they were going to face? Were they secure in their job if they were going to testify for you?
That was certainly a major fear, and at Hercules Powder Company, then the principal employer in the city of Hattiesburg, fortunately there was a union shop steward, Huck Dunnigan, who told his black workers that he would make sure that their attempting to register would not cost them their jobs, and Huck Dunnigan delivered.
Wow!
And the workers of the Hercules Powder Company were a major factor in our group of witnesses.
Now, you were there for what Mississippians of the day might have called the Kennedy Justice Department, or they would have certainly attached you to what they saw was a liberal Catholic president, right?
Well, yeah, except that civil rights had not been a priority for President Kennedy as a legislator, and he was slow in coming to it as chief executive. But he did, and the goal of the Kennedy administration was to provide the right to vote to blacks on the basic, solid, pragmatic view that once black people could vote, politicians would pay attention to them.
What did you do after being a U.S. Attorney? Where did you move on from there?
Well, I came back to Boston and became first assistant United States attorney for the District of Massachusetts.
Okay.
I later became a commissioner of the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, and then started a small law firm, and Martin, Morse, Wiley, and Kaplan for 11 years. I was appointed a judge of the Massachusetts Trial Court by Governor Michael Dukakis in 1983, and it was actually about 5 years later than that I began thinking back to my witnesses in Forrest County.
Okay.
I was taking a seminar at New York University, and all the academics in it had a project, and I thought, I know what my project is going to be, finding my witnesses in United States versus Theron Lynd.
Now, when you came to them, were they glad to talk about it, glad to remember it?
Oh, they were. They
Yeah.
were. They realized how their lives had changed as a result of the end of that kind of discrimination. And Willie Thigpen had the most memorable statement, as I recall. He said, "Oh, was it worth it? Of course it was worth it. Now I go into a store. The white man comes in, but I don't have to give up my place. I take my place in line just like anybody else. And when I get up to the counter, they don't call me boy anymore. They call me Mr. Thigpen."
Well, thanks so much for spending time with us. We've been talking with Gordon A. Martin, Jr., the author of Count Them One by One, Black Mississippians Fighting for the Right to Vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.